Welcome to Mathbytes, the place where we sink our intellectual teeth into the mathematical concepts. Today's topic? The Pythagorean Theorem, credited to the mathematician, Pythagoras. Let's dive in and uncover the timeless wisdom of Pythagoras together.
I have a square, and I'm going to label it A. I have a square, I'm going to label it B. And I'm going to have a square, I'm going to label this one C. And basically, the whole idea behind Pythagorean Theorem is that if you would add A plus B, U will equal C. So A plus B equals C. So if we're going to find the area of a square, what we would do, we would have to know one side of the square. All four sides are going to be the same length. So that means that if the bottom was 3 and the side was 3, then we could find the area by multiplying 3 times 3, because the formula for the area of a square is A equals S square, or side square. So in this case, 3 times 3 is 9. But you're not going to see 3 times 3 in the Pythagorean theorem. It's going to be written as 3 square. So the formula for Pythagorean theorem is not A plus B equals C, but it's actually A square plus B square equals C square. And that is your formula. Now, if I would take these same squares that I was using, here's my A square, and I'm going to split it into 3. So I'm going to draw 2 lines. So now I have 3 columns. But then on the side, I'm also going to draw 3 rows. So if you would count all of those little tiny squares, there are 9 smaller squares in this 3 by 3 square. So this is actually 3 square. Now let's take a look at B. On B, I am going to label the side 4. So that means that I am going to have 4 columns. I'm going to split it up into 4 columns, and I'm going to put 4 on the side, so I'm going to have 4 rows. So if you would add all of those smaller squares, 4 times 4 is 16, so that is 4 square. And finally, we have C. And for C, the bottom, I'm going to put a 5. So that means that I'm going to split this up into 5 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then on the side, I'm also going to write 5. And now I'm going to have 5 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if we would count all of these up, we would have 25. 25 smaller squares into this larger square. So that's 5 square. Now, if we take the Pythagorean theorem, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, and we plug these values in. So for A, we see that it's 3, and there's 2 sides, so we're going to bring down the square. For B, the value is 4, so we're going to put 4 there, and we're going to bring down the 2. Now, 3 squared, or 3 times 3 is 9, and 4 times 4 is 16. Now, when we add those two together, it gives us 25. Now, the theorem says A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So C is 5 here, and 5 times 5 is 25. So yes, 25 does equal 25. When we have a right triangle, and you know that it's a right triangle because there's this little tiny square in the corner. Now, I drew a straight line, and the degree of a straight line is 180 degrees. So if we would erase the line a little bit, or if we would bend the line up, I'm going to draw another straight line down. Well, what is half of 180? And half of 180 is 90. So we're going to have a little tiny box there in the corner, and that represents a 90-degree right angle. So these are right angle triangles. And you know that by the box that's in the corner. So in order to find the missing side, the first thing we need to do is label our triangle. And across from the box is always, always, always C. Then the other two sides, you just label A and B. It doesn't matter which one you label which, but one needs to be labeled A, the other one needs to be labeled B. There are some identification points that I want you to understand. When you see a box, that is the right angle box. And when you see the letters A and B, those sides are called legs, and they are adjacent to the right angle box. What we mean by adjacent is that they're connected to the right angle box. And then finally you have C. C is called the hypotenuse. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is always the longest side of the triangle. And once again, it is always across from the right angle box. It's always across from the right angle box. Okay, now we're going to do some practice. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to draw a triangle. And after we draw our triangle, the very first thing that we need to do to find the value of the missing side is to label our triangle. And remember, always across from the box is C. And then we write A and B. Then after we label our triangle, the next thing we need to do is identify the value of each side. So for A, we're going to have 5. For B, we're going to have 12. And for C, we don't know. That's the side that we are trying to find. So after we label, after we identify the values, now we need to write our formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now after we write the formula, we need to plug in the values. So for A, the value is 5. So I'm going to write a 5, and then I'm going to bring the square down. For B, the value is 12. I'm going to write 12 instead of B, and I'm going to bring the square down. And then we're going to put equals C squared because that's what we're trying to find. Now we need to square these sides. 5 times 5 is 25. 12 times 12 is 144. Now we need to add A and B together, which gives us 169. So that's 169 equals C squared. Now we're not looking for C squared, we're looking for C. So that means that we're going to have to find the square root of C squared. And the square root of a variable squared is just that variable, and the square root of 169 is 13, because 13 times 13 is 169. In my next video, we're going to be solving more problems. And we're not only going to be finding the value of the hypotenuse, but we're also going to find the value of the legs. See you next time.